Hello, welcome back to another episode of my channel, People Tree Insights. My name is Manjula Putture. Growing up in a very religious family, I was always taught that forgiveness was a virtue and essential for being a good human being. The Catholic boarding school I attended reinforced the idea that forgiveness was very essential to being a good person. The nun sisters or the father would come around and talk about virtue of forgiveness, of course, among the other things of being a good person. I was particularly influenced by the Lord's Prayer, where it said, "Forgive my trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." In that sentence, I thought man could come as close as possible to God. However, as I grew up, I understood that forgiveness can be complex and be deeply personal, especially for those who suffered abuse and trauma. I began to realize that forgiveness is a privilege of a victim to give or not to give. Recently, I met a young man who was raised in an abusive household. He asked me how he can forgive his parents who mentally abused him growing up. He was beaten up for not getting good grades. The teachers would beat him up for not getting good grades in the classroom. And when we came home, his mom would yell all kinds of abuses at him and his dad would belt him. As if you could belt a child or beat him up, the child will automatically become smart and get good grades. So how do you forgive those parents who continue to abuse this young man? Even today, they call him a loser, tell him that his brothers are more successful than he is, and he is very ungrateful. After he grew up, the mental health professionals told him that he needs to forgive to move on. The clergy urged him to forgive his parents because that's what a good person would do. His siblings accused him of being unforgiving and hard-hearted person. I told him that forgiveness was not needed to move on. I know this is contrary to what you've heard all your life, but I definitely believe that forgiveness is not needed to move on. I work with a lot of women. I personally know survivors of abuse who have chosen not to forgive their abuser, and still they were able to move forward and have fulfilling lives. They have completely removed this person from their lives. Why should they forgive? Especially when their children were abused and manipulated by the abuser. They honestly believe that the abuser does not even deserve their anger, forget vengeance, completely delete it from their life. A survivor friend told me that her kids are traumatized even today and she has no right to forgive the abuser who left them penniless. So, how can you forgive when you're still suffering the consequences? My dad was having a hard time forgiving a relative who was a drug addict. Relatives urged my dad to forgive him. He told me that he did not want to expose us, as we were little kids, to this relative who was becoming aggressive day by day to feed his habit. Sometimes, to protect yourself and your family, you cannot forgive your abuser. Forgiveness is ingrained in religion and in moral teaching, which is a good thing. I'm sure all of us must have forgiven somebody or the other in our life, and somebody or the other must have forgiven us. We did it, and we will do it to keep a relationship we value and also to keep harmony in our life. None of us are perfect, We make mistakes. For some individuals, in some circumstances, forgiving can be empowering and can contribute to the healing process. They might find peace and closure by forgiving those who have wronged them. I truly believe that forgiveness is a beautiful thing, but it comes into play only when a person repents and realizes the mistakes they have committed and is willing to make the necessary changes, working to reform. Then forgiveness is a gift you give, and you will definitely heal from inside. Even then, it is up to you to forgive or not to forgive. That is your choice. It really depends how deep the wounds are. How can you forgive a rapist, a murderer, somebody who abused your child or other person's child? They don't deserve any forgiveness, in my opinion. I know there are people who literally believe that by performing a religious ceremony and asking God to forgive them, all will be well. And to these people, I say, God may forgive you or not forgive you. Consequences are real. You cannot escape karma. Forgiveness and consequences are two different things. You cannot say that God has forgiven me, so I'm not going to go to prison. I heard a man testify in the church that he was a bad person but found God, and he's a new man now. And everybody were happy for him. I guess apparently the church was aware that he had certain character issues. But the nice people in the church were so eager to forgive him. In my head, I was thinking, yeah, God will forgive you, but will the victims forgive you? Can others forgive on behalf of the victim? I do not have an answer to that even today. Sometimes forgiveness puts the victims in danger, especially domestic abuse victims. There is a data showing that when a domestic abuse victim goes back, it could be fatal in case of severe trauma and abuse, such as domestic abuse. There is a lot of pressure on the victim to forgive the abuser. However, it is crucial for you to understand that you should not be forced into forgiving anybody. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot move on without forgiveness. There are steps you can take to move forward without forgiving. Step number 1, recognize and accept your situation. Step number 2, focus on designing a life you want to live. Number 3, cut off all contact with the abuser and enablers of the abuser. I understand that in most cases, it is not easy to walk away from an abuser. Maybe you're a child. You cannot walk away from your parents who are abusive. Maybe you have been told all your life that you're useless and you cannot do anything by yourself. Maybe you are scared to step out into the world. Maybe you are not economically independent. Several other reasons why a person cannot get out of an abusive situation. To these people, I say seek professional help if you can. Reach out to authorities, confide in a trusted person, and most importantly, work on an exit plan. Maybe do not dwell on their past situation. Instead, look to the future. Another coping mechanism is to pity this person. They do not deserve your forgiveness or hatred. Don't waste your energies hating them. Remember, forgiveness does not mean pretending that it didn't happen. The other person should acknowledge that it happened. Each individual's healing journey is unique. To forgive or not to forgive is your decision to make, and it's entirely up to you. The decision to forgive or not to forgive is deeply personal. There is no right or wrong. Your feelings and your safety is all that matters. If you know anyone in similar circumstances, kindly share my video. Be kind. Kindness will follow you. Kindness boomerangs. Kindly subscribe. Have a wonderful day.